Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Mommy Podcast. I'm your host, Kelly Dinning, and today we're getting into a part of postpartum that everyone experiences, I think, no matter what, which is the lack of sleep and your emotional bank. So essentially, what happens when your sleep is massively interrupted, aka being a brand new mom and having a brand new baby. And this also goes for the husbands out there that usually have a very disrupted first 3 months of sleep. So I wanted to put this episode out there because I've done it twice, and it's a very hard adjustment when you get used to sleeping through the night again. I mean, it's a first time adjustment the first time you have a baby, and you go from having these beautiful long sleeps of being uninterrupted, and maybe you have a little bit of insomnia one night because you had too much coffee or something like that. But then you get into every couple of hours you're waking up, and you're not waking up to a calming lullaby, you're waking up to a screaming baby. And, your heart is fluttering, you're scared, you're getting out of bed as fast as you can, your adrenaline is shooting through the roof, going from a sleeping state to that. And that definitely has some effects on the body. So the start of this is, if you're a new mom and you get me with a brand new infant, and I'm kind of including within the first year. I know people can sleep train their babies earlier. Mine, I started sleep training around 8 months. So I did it a little bit later because they were generally okay sleepers. And I did it for the selfish reason that I was also breastfeeding. So I found at about 3-4 o'clock in the morning, I would be super engorged and I would want to breastfeed my baby so that I could go back to bed and not feel all that pressure in my chest. So I waited until about the 8-month mark, did the sleep training, and then had them doing their whole 12 hours at night. Now, in the beginning, however, you feel like in the first few days and months, if someone breathes the wrong way, you're going to snap. And from what I've heard, it's pretty normal. And it's okay. Sometimes you have to understand that you're not sleeping as much, but it's a very uncontrollable state of being. And from one mother to another, it's not long enduring. Trust me, life does level out and you will get your sleep back. But yourself and your house is probably going to take a bit of a visual hit. Your showers, your you time, the cleaning, things like that are not going to be as pretty and beautiful, especially in those first 3 months, because you're going through a big balancing act and a big adjustment. Now, in the moment, you feel quite literally like you're losing your mind. And I had to look this up. Of course, like everything else, is this normal? Am I the only one? And ta-da, I'm not the only one. Apparently it's very common, and I will get into a few studies on that. But first, I wanted to start off with, what does sleep deprivation actually do to you? And I was educated through this research this time that it's actually not called sleep deprivation. It is called sleep insufficiency, when you're able to sleep, but your sleep schedule doesn't allow for it. So you have a little infant that is not allowing you to have those solid 8 hours of sleep. So not exactly sleep deprivation, it's called sleep insufficiency. So what does it do? Well, it does a whole bunch of bad things. It reduces your immune system. It lowers your body's ability to fight any infections in that sense. You have a slower metabolism. So, hey, welcome to weight gain. Fun. It can lead to death through things like motor vehicle accidents and making big mistakes because you're so tired. Now, it also impairs your ability to do logical reasoning, which makes sense because you feel like you can't think in those early days. Like you don't have any memory. If someone tells you something, you immediately forget. I've already talked about that. You have a ton of mood changes. And now in the early days, it's hard to understand, are those mood changes associated to my hormones balancing back out and going crazy? Or is it because I'm not sleeping? Well, from what I found out, if you're not sleeping, that's also really affecting your mood. It gives you irritability, anxiety. It causes depression. It reduces your sex drive, reduces your quality of life, and your ability to pay attention. So now that I've just gone through all those positives of not sleeping, you can kind of understand your state in those first few months. And now it saying all of that brilliant negativity that you're going into, if you heard me a little bit earlier, it's only 3 months. So those first 3 months are the worst from studies that have gone on. And the ACES UIUC study of 464 infants and parents for the first 2 years of their life actually looked at how much sleep do mums actually get. And the results were shocking. To me, it was shocking to actually see it in paper because you don't realize it when you're in it. So at the 0 to 3 month mark, a new mom is getting a total of 5.7 hours of sleep. And that is not a combined long block. That is pieces, because you are up every 1.5 to 2 hours. So with a new baby, you have to feed them continually, make sure that they're growing and healthy. And that means being up and feeding them every couple of hours. So what does that look like? Well, that means that if you went to bed, you put your baby to bed at 7, let's be generous, you're going to be up at 9, you're going to be up at 11, you're going to be up at 1 in the morning, 3 in the morning, 5 in the morning, and then again at 7 in the morning. So that doesn't look like a very restful night, and that doesn't look like a very balanced human being. Now, your baby is wonderful. They're getting all of these dream feeds and they're going through and growing beautifully, but you have to be aware of that yourself, that you're going to be very sleep deprived, and it is very normal. As per the study, the first 0 to 3 months is a time that you just really can't escape that so much. Now, between 12 and 24 months, you get an increase. It goes from 5.7 to 5.9 hours, which is not even that much better because your baby is going to go through these experiences. They sleep train, they start getting bigger and heavier and all this kind of stuff. However, in my personal experience with my 2, they then go through another thing like teething, or they get a night terror situation that happens for a little while. So although you are through the sleep training and they don't need to be fed in the middle of the night, there's still other things that will wake them up. So that kind of relates to that 5.9 hours. It makes sense to me in that light that you would still be only getting 5.9 hours. So watch out. It's not getting much better for the first year. And I mean, that even goes into the 24 months. Now, there are ways to get your sanity back now that you've learned all of the things that are going to happen to you, most likely where you're going to lose your mind. So Johns Hopkins Medicine said that there are ways to get more rest and your sanity back. Basically, you're sleeping when your baby sleeps. That is way easier said than done. You're skipping household chores. Again, way easier said than done. And you're asking for help. So you're sharing those nighttime baby duties. Again, super difficult to do if you're breastfeeding. Easier said than done, because if you're engorged and you need to feed your baby, you don't want to be pumping before bed, giving a bottle to your husband, and then having them feed the baby because you're going to wake up miserable because your chest hurts so much. So there's pluses and minuses. Anyways, you also want to place the crib near your bed and ask family and friends for help. And this includes things like, can you hold my baby so I can go and have a 20-minute nap or a half an hour nap? Or can you vacuum the floors? Can you get me groceries? Ask your friends, your family, your mother, your mother-in-law for help in those first few months because you need it. You're going to take a hit. And especially if you have other little kids that you have to be up for, you want to make sure that you're trying to get every little piece of rest that you can. Now, it also said that you should be starting to sleep train your baby at 3 months. So I knew this, but I ignored it for both of mine for the reason that I mentioned. However, the standard is to sleep train your baby at 3 months when they are between 12 and 13 pounds, because at 12 and 13 pounds, they can sleep through the night. They don't need night nutrition. So if you're comfortable with it, something that I did was try a few different sleep training methods. I ended up getting these massive books and these massive texts and things like that. That didn't work for me. The ones that did work for me, the one that worked for me was taking Cara Babies sleep training. I believe her name is Cara Brewster, and it's taking CARA Babies. The sleep training is wonderful. It is very simple. It was super effective. It helped me with both of my kids, getting them to sleep 12 hours a night. So just a quick side note there, if you're looking for a good sleep training, taking Cara Babies, could not recommend it enough. Now, this lack of sleep is something that you can kind of get caught in this vicious cycle of overstimulating yourself. So speaking from personal experience, I started having way more food and coffee because I thought, I need the energy. So I need foods, I need carbs, I need sugary foods, and I need coffee. And that's going to keep me up and going and energized. Basically just creates this terrible cycle where you have too much caffeine in your body. And like I mentioned, if you're sleep deprived, your metabolism is lower, things like that. So then you're starting to gain weight. You're not feeling good about yourself. And all of those things combine to you not sleeping well, even when you're sleeping for those 5.7 hours in the beginning. So ask your mom or your mother-in-law to take the baby so that you can sleep and try to kick those bad cycles. I noticed a big difference for myself when I cut down to just 1 cup of coffee in the morning and getting back into my routine and not changing anything. If I was feeling dead tired, I would just ask for help if I had it around. If I didn't, I would have a breakdown. And luckily, I have a very supportive family that is around me, and my husband is wonderful and could say, okay, you clearly need to get some sleep, so I'm going to take the kids and da-da-da-da. So anyways, instead of, the days where I could not get the sleep, where I didn't have anyone around me because I do live in a city where my family doesn't live, then, you're probably verging on a breakdown, and that's okay. It's in those early months. It's fine. You're going to go through them. I've had them. You get over it. So hopefully you have a loving, supportive person in your life and people around you that can help you through those moments when you are sleep deprived and quite literally breaking down. Now, I mentioned it's temporary. You will sleep again. Your kids, apparently, my mom said, will get to the age where you have to wake them up in the morning because they're sleeping in and they're teenagers and blah, 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 blah. So it changes. If you're in it right now, it feels like forever. It feels like your life is very unbalanced. It is. It gets better. So I learned something interesting through this, though, that you get to kind of relate to your kids. I didn't understand exactly why when my little one would not nap, my firstborn wouldn't nap. She would just be a terror and she would be very hard to manage. She would be a little maniac. I understand it now because when you're working off of little sleep, you're not getting those naps and that proper time at rest, you feel like a maniac. So it gives you a little bit of insight, a little bit of, hey, welcome to my life and stepping into their shoes so you can see what it's like to be a little bit lacking of sleep. It's a good life lesson and just something that teaches you that you and everyone around you needs it. You need to sleep. Try your best to get some sleep. There are, of course, those tips and tricks that I mentioned. They're not all effective for you and your situation in your life. Different things to try out. Now, the sleepfoundation.org also said, of course, after listing off all of the negatives of not getting enough sleep, they talked about the positives. So there are benefits to getting 8 hours of sleep. And benefits that, the regular adult is not really looking into, I don't think. What am I doing to benefit my body if I'm getting 8 hours of sleep? Well, there are things like you get sick less often. The sleepfoundation.org also says that you stay at a very healthy weight. You feel better and you look better. So your complexion is better. You're not as puffy. That's a bonus. That's a bonus. You're feeling better and you're looking better. And you're reducing stress. You're improving mood. You're improving your heart health, your metabolism. You're lowering your risk of chronic conditions like high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, stroke. You're improving your ability to get along with others, which is a whole nother story. And you're able to better perform daily activities, lessen the risk of, any kind of accidents, motor vehicle accidents, things like that can lead to death-related injury. So there is a little bit of insight into what to expect in those first few months with your little one and likely your first year, what that's truly going to look like, how you're expecting your life to pan out, how you're probably going to feel. It is a major part of your life that you're not thinking about going in. I didn't think, okay, I'm having a new baby. My sleep is going to be disrupted. How is that going to affect me? I remember thinking, oh yeah, your little baby wakes up many times throughout the night. You know about that. But until you live that, wow, that is a whole new adjustment. So good luck to you if you are in that. Ask for help. Take those positives and try to use them and incorporate them into your life so that you can get a little bit more rest. It'll be a better you, a better mother, a better everything in your life. And it's temporary. You'll get more rest one day. I hope that you got something from this. Maybe it just brightened your awareness a little bit on sleep and healthy sleep principles and the effects of not getting that healthy sleep. So, as always, I hope you go out there and don't just have a good day, have your absolute best day. I will talk to you again in the next episode, which will be the last episode for this season. Wrapping it up, season 1 will be complete and we'll be jumping into season 2. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.